Mr. President.
The senator from Louisiana.
Mr. President, last Tuesday, President Biden formally nominated Julie Su to be the Secretary of the Department of Labor. Now, as ranking member of the committee that oversees her nomination, I felt it was important to express some concerns that have only grown since her previous nomination. Deputy Secretary Su has a troubling record and is currently overseeing the Department of Labor's development of anti-worker regulations dismantling the gig economy. This does not inspire confidence in her current position, let alone confidence that she should be promoted. Ms. Su's record now and in her previous position as Secretary for the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency deserves scrutiny. I look forward to a full review and hearing process for her nomination. In California, Ms. Su was a top architect of AB 5, a controversial law that removed the flexibility of individuals to work as independent contractors. Now, independent contractors, we can call them freelancers. They make their own hours and they choose the type of work they wish to do. I was recently taking a lift. The driver told me that he was able to clear $500 a day. He has Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash on his phone. He flips between the apps. He chooses the job from whichever one is immediately available, and through it all, he clears $500 a day. I said, wait a second, man, you got to pay your gas, you got to pay your insurance, or you still, oh yeah, I clear $500 a day. Now, if he's working 5 days a week, he's doing $10,000 a month. Independent contractors are shielded from forced or coerced unionization that could strip that flexibility away. This, of course, has made eliminating this classification a top priority for large labor unions who benefit from more workers being forced to pay mandatory union dues. Now, it's important to note, even in California, AB 5 is extremely unpopular. 59% of Californian voters supported a measure to exempt rideshare drivers from AB 5. The law is so flawed, the governor and state legislature have had to pass multiple laws to exempt over 100 occupations. The statutory exemptions are longer than the text of AB 5 itself. But Ms. Su has taken her support for this anti-worker, pro-union policy to the U.S. Department of Labor. During her tenure as Deputy Secretary of Labor, essentially the agency's chief operating officer, the Biden administration pushed to eliminate independent contracting via federal executive rulemaking. Now, there was never any hope of getting AB 5-like law through Congress, so they pursued their goals through regulation. And if finalized, the new regulation strips 21 million Americans of their ability to classify themselves as independent contractors and enjoy the flexibility this provides. This regulation would undermine the business model of services like Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash that provide valuable services and give drivers the ability and freedom to set their own hours and even hop between states. I go out the airport in New Orleans, Louis Armstrong International Airport, and the guy picks me up's got Maryland plates. Oh yeah, I moved here like 6 months ago, wanted to come down for Jazz Fest. And so I just notified the different, Uber and Lyft, and now I'm down here working instead of back where I started. We're talking maximal flexibility. By the way, it's not just the Uber and Lyft drivers affected. Truckers are severely impacted. Many truckers are independent owner-operators. They own their own trucks. This regulation could devastate the freedom of these truckers. It could potentially impact the supply chain in the process, as trucking moves more than 72% of the goods in the United States annually. Now, as a conservative from a conservative state, but I think as an American from any state, I can say that we don't need the application of a law from one of the most liberal states to the entire nation. A law rejected in California is not a policy to be pursued on the federal level. We need to support the right of workers and their ability to choose what is best for them, not put them in a straitjacket to serve other people's goals. I also want to hear Ms. Su's position on DOL's effort to uproot the franchise model, which employs over 8 million Americans. Deputy Secretary Sue has made public comments indicating that she will pursue attempts at DOL to forcefully impose a joint employer classification on the almost 800,000 franchises operating in our communities, the same as any other small business. Saddling franchisors with liability for thousands of franchise owners that actually operate the small business would be a sure way to destroy the system of franchising. A model which has allowed those underrepresented in the business community, women, people of color, to have the ability to live the American dream, becoming successful small business owners as they help create jobs, lifting other workers out of poverty. No one is surprised that the joint employer rule is a major priority for large labor unions. It's easier for them to pressure one company to unionize, to increase their union dues, than to pressure thousands of independent businesses. The priority of the Biden administration should not be to do whatever makes it easier to forcibly and coercively unionize workers while undermining the business models of the establishments they work for. It should be to increase individual freedom and opportunity. It comes to mind, there's a fellow north of Baton Rouge, moved here from West Africa to attend LSU. After he attended LSU, he became a citizen, and now he's a franchisor for multiple franchises, multiple outlets of the company with which he does. And he talks about the American dream. Coming here from Nigeria as a transfer student, getting his citizenship, and now being an owner, involved in Rotary, running for political office, a better American than most Americans. Somehow this threatens the Department of Labor. Now, in addition to her policies, we should ask questions about how Ms. Sue presided over a mismanaged California unemployment insurance program during the pandemic, and why California paid $31 billion in fraudulent claims when she chose to suspend the eligibility determination process. Some of these payments went to inmates and known domestic and international criminals. To put into context, Department of Labor's requested budget is $15 billion and employs more than 17,000 people. This means that Ms. Sue lost more than double the annual budget of the agency she'll be responsible for managing in Washington, D.C. This calls into question her qualifications as a manager. Unfortunately, there'll be many reasons to be concerned about Ms. Sue's nomination to head the Department of Labor, and I look forward to a full hearing process to further discuss. Now, Mr. President, I request that the following appear separately in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, today we introduced the Congressional Review Act, a resolution of disapproval to overturn the Biden administration's unfair student loan schemes that transfer the burden of $400 billion in federal student loans from those who willingly took on that debt and took on that debt to get a degree that would help them make more money, to American taxpayers who perhaps never went to college or who already filled their commitment to pay off their loans, oftentimes sacrificing to do so. The resolution would also end the pause on student loan payments, which by August will have cost taxpayers almost $200 billion. President Biden has extended this pause 6 times for a total of 31 months, far beyond the original justification of an ongoing pandemic. I'm joined by 38 of my colleagues in offering this resolution. Last August, President Biden announced his plan to cancel up to $20,000 in federal student loans from most borrowers and to extend the payment and interest accrual pause in student loans via executive fiat. Make no mistake, this reckless student loan scheme does not forgive debt. It does not forgive debt at all. It just transfers the burden from those who willingly took out these loans for college, and again, in order to make more money when they graduate, to Americans who never attended college or who've already paid off their loans. And I would ask, where's the forgiveness for the guy who didn't go to college but bought a truck, went to work, and is now working to pay off that loan? Is his truck loan going to be forgiven? It will not be. And what about the woman who paid off her student loans but is now struggling to afford her mortgage? Does she get a refund to help her with a mortgage? Is the administration providing them relief? And the answer is no. Instead, the administration would have them not only pay their bills, but the bills for those who decided to go to college in order to make more money and then have their student loans forgiven.